Hi, I'm Seamless, and today is Wednesday, which means it's time for a new viewer track review video. If you would like to have your track in one of these review videos, head on over to the Discord and submit it there with the channel that's labeled for it, with the rules that are for it, and whatever, do all the stuff that says to do, and that is how you will get your track in here, maybe, because it's a random selection process. Anyway, let's begin with today's first track. This is, Spades. Never satisfied. Yes. Okay. Here we go with this. All right, this might have been the one where the individual commented that the thing got cut off at the end, but they still wanted to know what was up. So this is this. Okay. I liked it a lot. I like the sounds. I like the palette. There's some things about the mix that are a bit weird. The primary thing in the main stuff, because this is all very good. It's all very tightly woven and nicely put together. And the snare kind of gets me, mostly because of its reverb. Like, it's a sound, it's fine. Wow, excuse me. But as the sound is fine, and it needed a little bit of that kind of 2K-ish sizzle addition to the palette that's already there. And I don't know, I would have done that with reverb, and that's why I would have the reverb in the first place. And there's a bit more kind of down here in the 500E range going on in your reverb there, and it makes it feel very woody, and it would be all right, except that it's the only thing that has that particular reverb, so it sticks out. Like, there's a lot of this other awesome palette going on with, especially these chords, like, coming together. Like, I like them a lot. I like their texture, and I like the rest of the texture, and then the snare comes in and it sounds like a middle school gymnasium. That's sort of how I mean, any reverb can sound goofy if you just call out something stupid, but I think this could be solved just by like high passing it a little bit, like getting it in its own send or whatever, and then separating it parallel and then doing that to it. That's sort of one of the extreme values of doing that. I feel like you do that a lot in some of these other things. So it's just more of that is all on that. I also dug the strategy of just kind of letting your drop be in your intro. Like you have your kind of your air palette coming, which is nice and to feel good. And then it's just like, here's the bases. They're just going. And that's cool. I think though that this did show your hand a little too much, a little too fast. It was cool, except that when it was just the same thing again, basically, when the drop came in, it wasn't as impressive. And as well, we already heard a lot of it at full force. So the drop could not bring us relatively any much higher. It did, obviously, because the sub was nice and the kick is nice. But again, because he showed the whole thing off already, so much of it was filled. Like it wasn't much of a big jump to go from 70% to 90%. So I'd recommend perhaps like just cutting it up a bit, like kind of fading in with it in the gradient style, like hitting this, letting it go, hitting this, letting it go, more hitting this, and hitting denser until you're doing the whole thing on like in the intro, cutting it up and whatnot, that until you have the drop. And now it's like, oh, it's the whole thing and it's cool. Like that could be the drop. That could have been this drop. I kind of see where it's going with this deal in this middle bit. I like that. I like the big like visual stabs that made no sense at all to say in the context of this sound. But what I meant to say is that these kind of monolithic like power chords are fun. I like them. I like that a lot. So dope track overall. Pretty much not so much to say about the mix. Or the master rather, other than the snare thing. It's more just arrangement about this. You definitely seem to have a very sort of like cinematic vision for this, and that's like good. They just follow that instinct. That's already good. That, like whatever it is you'll come out with this thing's already surpassed being a totally adequate track. So continue on with your dopeness. This next track is by Sandro with a 0. It's called Speak Volumes. Oh, Jesus. Like I need sunglasses just to see this. Okay. I'm expecting something. Oof. Let's see how high this clips. Or maybe this would be the first really loud track that did the cared about their intersample peaking. There might have already been some people who have done that. Have been, selective memory and whatnot. Anyway, here we go with this. Woof. Wow. So I like this moment a lot, although I have to wonder if it's because I'm monitoring this particularly low. This is okay. I don't know if you know this, but this is gonna seem like such a non-sequitur, but get ready for this. I don't know if you know this, but 174 BPM is a multiple of F. The note F. It's pretty much the only one that's the only BPM that's near there, and it's the drum and bass one. And it makes perfect sense because what that basically means is that the sub oscillation of an F note fits inside the beat of 174. Well, it's like 174 point something or whatever, but around their BPM track, and close enough that what essentially means is that like if you don't screw with your phase too much, kicks and hits and things will be in time with it. And not only that, not only will like it'll help your mix and whatnot for the phases to be aligned, but it actually also means that your beats are tuned. Like, not just the things are tuned with the subs that are played, but I mean literally their rhythmic timing is an oscillation that is tuned to your track just by the merit of it being a division of the beat, which is also tuned to your track. Isn't that funky? And I really gotta, I haven't numerated it out to do this, but I gotta wonder how much of it is like kept track in our heads. Because think of a whole track. You have a lead element, like mid-range stuff, your basses, and then you have the drums and lower elements, and they're all separated and down at the rhythmic level. And I wonder if that's just that, if it's just a cascading like high frequency to low frequency attention span thing, or I don't know what. But 174, it's all tuned up. But then I hear this thing, how this is related to all this. I heard this, and it's collection of what it is in the sound design capacity. Ain't all that, it did the thing, but you can see it. High frequency distortion, a timed high pass kick just really fast, and there's the noise. There's a lot happening here, I'll tell you what. And like there's a lot happening in this whole track. Like, this track is awesome. And hey, did you notice that it wasn't clipping? Isn't that cool? It actually was paying attention to the intersample peaking for ramming something super hard into something, which is to say you can do this. You can actually do this on purpose and have it come out and be serviceable. And there's an element of it happening. But the layer, why it struck me so much is because it made me focus on the frequencies and the rhythmic attention all at once. And I really got to wonder if that's related, if that's why that stuff is awesome. Or like, if that's a thing about human hearing that we care about on like a scale. Anyway, this track was dope. Good job. It's loud as damn. And like, I don't know if I want to be much longer than this. It's pretty short. I could see it being longer. It could be longer, but like, I think it's good that it's short. Is this a style? Could there be a sustained album of something at this level? I have to wonder what the limit is of actual, like, you could technically listen to something that's loud before it like becomes actually damaging. I guess it's technically true for anything at any level, loud enough over time, long enough that, yeah, it'll hurt, but like, because this was cool. And I just, I listened to it kind of low, but that's not how I usually listen to stuff. You know what I mean? We do a dangerous job. Anyway, moving on to a next track. This is Moesef Lushes. Woo! A much different looking color palette in that there is more than one color and not just blinding yellow. Okay, moving on.
It hurts. Let's stop it. It hurts terribly.
okay, well, that definitely had one very prominent sound in there, didn't it? And it needed a B phase. Like, at first I was just gonna say don't have it. It was a fine intro sound. It was a fine sound in the intro. It was a decent enough, like, because it wasn't like bad. It was just very identifiably it. And then we really played it out here. Like, we basically got to see all of it right here. And then it just kept being it. And boy, this like false thing happened here before we got to the real drop. And then with the delayed drums and with the drop, like, here's the drop actually happening, but then the drums don't start till here. This is like second drop stuff, and I'm worried that the first drop actually did happen here, that before that happened, until then this happened. But like, this should have happened here. That would have made sense, because then we'd be expecting the drums, and then it not being there, like, would help at that stage. So this song definitely has a little schizophrenia about like when the hype ends and the drop begins. And I would say that sound still needs a B phase. It needs a lower targeted form in B phase, because to me it's triggering that, like, because it doesn't feel right because it's so high frequency and it's like chipmunkiness, and that's just a thing that I don't like. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, because technically speaking, you definitely managed to wrangle it into something usable. Like the width of it, the whip of it, the feel of the sub, all of it, the texture, it's great. It's just where it lives and what it's doing just doesn't feel right to me. At least not by itself. And like, and this literal, this capacity. It is impressive that you had this kind of control over it, I'll tell you that much. And the mix was okay. The writing, like, of the music was also all right. Like, I like the layers. I like this track's kind of vibe. Maybe it needed something a little more leady over it. If it had an actual vocal, if this was designed for vocals, this would sound great with vocals. If this was designed had a lead otherwise, I think it would be okay. As a beat, it's still totally fat. As that's rated fat with a PH, y'all. I'm from the 90s. Okay, here comes Insight by Contrail. Isn't that cool? You can see the phase change in the mid bass in there. So this is a fine track. Only beef I got with it is how heavy the drums are, specifically the kick. The lead on this track is pretty overpowering, and I like it. I like the nice impact texture it has. I dig that on a lot of the stuff in this track, actually. The attention to transient detail and the mix and how carefully you cared about it was pretty cool. And the arrangement of it all is quite nice. Although I would actually say to not do this twice, especially in the beginning. I would maybe do just a one length of this and then have that like off time with the lower half of it, because there's not much happening on both of them. If there were more to say with these parts, then they could be this long, but they don't need to be happening twice like that when they're already going to happen twice. Speaking of this second section though, I would think also, if I were to do this, that I would make this part full time, and then I would do that halftime thing. I wouldn't come out of it at halftime, just because the drop with it being a mislead already, and then it coming on halftime is gonna get people. I don't know. I mean, it's dope. I'll say that. Like, I like the halftime and half in it. Like, that was a throw for it, but it comes back to the drums also not being heavy enough for that. It was because these drums are like verging on not being heavy enough for this. Right now they are like just the right amount of heavy, but they need amount of punch. They need more punch. And right now things are very like tight and clicky and surgical. There just needs to be a little more mid-range sort of feel and motion in what the kick does to things. There's not a lot of mid-range motion on anything. You can kind of see a big deficit just in general. So some of that up there might help that. And then also in this bit with the halftime section, it struggles to punch through the heaviness of these bits here. And I don't know, whatever it is you're doing to do it already, because it's doing something clearly. Do more of it. Like, just have the kick kind of like be higher on the hierarchy than the lead at least. Like, sure, the lead should be pretty high and maybe even compete with the kick, but it doesn't need to be like killing it, because it kind of does, especially running in near the end there. But otherwise, dope track. Good times with this. The next track is called Alone by Atlas. With an A. Alone, I say. Here's a listen. Sudden major resolution. Sudden, not much else in this track though. It's not a very sudden track. I like it though. This actually reminds me a lot of the music in Dot Hack Sign, the anime of it. The those were some pretty sweet beats, and this had a lot of that kind of like musical momentum to it, and a really decent sort of progression to it. And I like that. Just, you know, probably guess I'm gonna say that some of it was just a bit long. Like, these parts were good, it's just that they didn't do much between their sections of how long they were to exist. And then there'd be these interludes, these movements, then there, but the movements, they didn't like have the inter between them of their nature, but like the sound palette of it, like, and also like this was very reminded me of a kind of Rhapsody-esque design, and which is cool though because it pulls together this sort of realistic minimal instrumental approach, but then you get these like solid sub beats part of it's nice, which is nice. The stacking is a bit high frequency toasty though. You can kind of see that as a layer here. Part of that I think is just because there's a desire to have all of your layers present at during certain moments, and it comes across as just a lot of high frequency competition. Oof. My oofing there is because it didn't really sound like any one of those sounds had a lot of like real noise involved in it, even if it might have. That's how well this sort of blend is, that it all kind of feels okay, except for right there where it's all combined, where the combination of it turns into so much actual noise that it kind of has almost a old video game console like 8-bit texture to it. Kind of cool, not gonna lie. But yeah, this track is a really good expression of music, like fully fledged. There's the details in there, and like the carrying and the progression and emotion, and hearing like the story of it. I like it when there is what feels like almost like a story in a song, because I'm gonna make one, you know, that's gonna happen. That's what hearing a song does to me. So it helps if there's like stuff to build it on, you know. So that's what I find cool with lots of good music. Yeah. Moving on, we have Radask. Take This. Also, that last track was clipping, which was interesting because didn't seem like it was that loud, but you know, check your intersample peaking, y'all. Here comes this. Well, take this. that was very, very loud and very, very layered, but still so very loud with so many, like, you can hear everything in the stack at all times. And it's so well mixed, but it's so much. Like, this is one of these, like, okay, you can, but should you moments. The answer is probably yes. You know, because this is dope. That, let's, for example, the very beginning of this track. I'm already into that. I like how that feels. And this is when I start getting impressed, is when I hear that saw wave lead come in on top of this, and like neither are worse for wear. That's, and like how loud this is being already, and that's what it's like coming in on there. Like the extra distortion didn't really seem to care, but that was just a portent of things to come, because what's happening with the rest of it's on. There's so many things going on, but you could hear them all individually. This must have been so much work. And it's also just so very clean. Like, look at the low end. You can see the cutoff on the objects, and it's perfect. And it has to be in order for it to have done this, to even have gotten nearly this legible. This is still very, like, this is very ear fatiguey. I'm listening to this on low volumes, and it's already, you know, I gotta say this every time. It's very loud. It's very top heavy. Like, it probably shouldn't be this top heavy, and it's definitely clipping too much. And that's problems, but very solvable problems. You can definitely have everything you're having right now with like a 2BB cut on some of your higher frequencies, and it would just, that be it. It'd be fine. This would be, this is a pretty excellent example of loudness, engineering for loudness. I'll tell you what. I like the sounds. I like what you do with them. The layering on the lead, though, especially near the second half, because like this part was banging, but only because we got to have this section of it without it. Because when it came back, how on top of that, while everything is still going on, is insane. You know, that's still nuts, but it's also been a while at this point. And with how hard this is pushing, it's actually kind of a lot of effort to have jammed that into your head for that so long, is what I'm saying, you know, about the should be kind of thing. But it's insofar as like your engineering control over this, if ever you had to wonder if you were good, like, that's a yes. You can do things. You are officially beyond probably a good idea. You can lift, bro. Yeah. Other than that, dope track. It's interesting because normally when I like this is not really to do with this track, but it's sort of just kind of like how crazy it is. Like, when a lot of times I'll hear a track that a student will do, and the principal problem will be that they attempted to make every one of their layers as visible and legible, and have all their cool parts be as noticeably cool as they are when they are all by themselves. Like, you hear this neat part about the ARP, and then you hear this clinky neat thing about the percussion bit about this thing. And you want all that as awesomely present as possible. Well, forgetting that, like, a lot of these things are actually designed to be kind of like background patty things for something that's like leading it all. It's funny things that have these words, right? But the typical problem mix-wise is like, cool, that's really hard. It's really hard work to make everything that legible together and as loud as they were and be as good as they were by themselves. And that's this track. Like, that's why I keep being like, wow, so much in your layers. This is nuts. Because it is nuts. This would normally have stopped a lot of people because of how much work this would have been. And, you know, the surgical solutions is usually what I suggest as well, is that, like, sure, start high passing stuff, start cutting up your levels, start making sure that absolutely nothing that isn't the thing that's cool about what your layer is there, so that it's all adding up together the way it should. And that's what's happening. And the only issue is that you've gone so far with it that it's just adding up to be like endangering hearing levels amount of stuff. And that's like 2 seconds of fixes to fix that, because that's how awesome it is. Anywho, good job all y'all. That's it for today. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And as usual, have a nice day. Also, stay safe, guys. Do that.